The rain fell softly on the streets of Seoul that evening. Inside the small coffee shop on the corner, warm light spilled through the windows. The smell of fresh coffee filled the air. Miho wiped down the counter for the third time that hour. It was a slow night, and only 2 customers sat in the shop. One was an old man reading his newspaper near the window. The other was a strange figure sitting alone in the darkest corner booth. Miho had noticed this person when his shift started 3 hours ago. The figure wore a long, tattered cloak that covered most of their body. The hood was pulled low, casting shadows over their face. What bothered Miho was not the strange clothing. It was the fact that this person had not ordered anything. They just sat there, completely still, staring at the table. Miho's manager had already walked past twice, giving pointed looks. The message was clear: make them order something or ask them to leave. But Miho could not do it. There was something about the figure that made his heart ache. They looked so alone, so tired, like someone carrying a weight too heavy to bear. He finished cleaning the counter and made a decision. His manager had gone to back office. The old man was focused on his newspaper. Nobody would notice. Miho prepared a simple coffee, not the fancy kind with strange names and extra shots. Just a warm, comforting cup of dark coffee. He added a small cookie on the side, the kind his grandmother used to make. Then he walked over to the corner booth. As he got closer, Miho noticed details he had missed before. The cloak was not just old. It seemed to be made from material he had never seen, like it absorbed light instead of reflecting it. Under the edge of the hood, he could see what looked like scales. Deep blue scales that shimmered slightly in the dim light. His hands trembled a bit, but he kept walking. When he reached the table, he set down the coffee and cookie gently. "I thought you might like something warm," Miho said with a smile. "It is cold outside with all this rain." The figure did not move at first. Then, slowly, the hooded head lifted. 2 eyes met Miho's gaze, and for a moment, time seemed to stop. Those eyes were ancient. They held sadness deeper than any ocean. They were gold with flecks of silver, and they looked at Miho with surprise that seemed to shake the very air around them. "You brought this for me?" The voice was deep and rough, like thunder rolling across distant mountains. But there was something else in it, too. Confusion. Disbelief. "Yes," Miho said simply. "You have been sitting here alone for a long time. Everyone deserves a warm drink on a rainy night." The figure stared at the coffee cup as if it were the most precious thing in the universe. A scaled hand emerged from beneath the cloak. The fingers were long and ended in careful claws. They wrapped around the cup with surprising gentleness. "I did not order this," the figure said slowly. "I know," Miho replied. "It is a gift from one person to another." The figure brought the cup closer, breathing in the steam. Those ancient eyes closed for a moment. When they opened again, something had changed in them. Something soft and vulnerable. "Why would you do this?" the figure asked. "You do not know me." Miho pulled out the chair across from the figure and sat down. His shift was almost over anyway, and something told him this conversation mattered. "I do not need to know you to see that you are alone," Miho said. "I work here every evening. I watch people come and go. Most come with friends or family. They laugh and talk. But you sit here like you are carrying the weight of the world. Nobody should be that alone." The figure took a sip of coffee. Then another. A sound escaped from beneath the hood. Something between a sigh and a sob. "This is good," the figure whispered. "I have not tasted something this simple in I cannot remember how long." "What is your name?" Miho asked gently. There was a long pause. The figure seemed to be deciding something important. "You may call me Tae-jin," the figure finally said. "I am Miho," he replied with a warm smile. "It is nice to meet you, Tae-jin." They sat in silence for a while. It was not an uncomfortable silence. It was the kind of quiet that exists between people who understand that words are not always necessary. "Can I ask you something?" Tae-jin said eventually. "Do you do this often? Give things to strangers?" Miho thought about it. "Not often," he admitted. "But when I see someone who needs kindness, I try to help. My grandmother used to say that small acts of kindness create ripples in the world, like dropping a stone in water. You never know how far those ripples will travel. Your grandmother sounds wise, Teijin said. Miho said with a sad smile. She died 2 years ago, but I try to live by what she taught me. Teijin nodded slowly. The ones we love never truly leave us. They live on in our actions and choices. They talked for another hour. Miho did most of the talking at first. He told Teijin about his life, how he worked at the coffee shop to pay for college, how he studied history because he loved learning about different cultures and people, how he dreamed of traveling the world one day, meeting new people, and hearing their stories. Teijin listened to everything with intense focus. Sometimes he asked questions. His questions were strange, like he was learning about humans for the first time. But Miho did not mind. He found himself enjoying the conversation. As closing time approached, Teijin stood up. He was tall, much taller than Miho had expected. Even with the cloak covering him, his presence seemed to fill the room. "Thank you, Miho," Teijin said. The weight in his voice made those simple words feel important. This meant more to me than you could possibly know. Will you come back tomorrow?" Miho asked hopefully. Teijin paused at the door. When he turned back, there was something like a smile in those ancient eyes. "Yes," he said. "I believe I will." After Teijin left, Miho cleaned up the coffee shop. He found himself smiling as he worked. His manager came out and asked about the customer in the corner. Miho simply said they had left. As he locked up the shop and walked home through the rain, Miho felt good. He had no idea who or what Teijin really was. He did not know that he had just shown kindness to one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. He did not know that this simple act would change the fate of entire star systems. All he knew was that he had made a lonely person feel a little less alone. And for Miho, that was enough. Teijin returned the next evening, just as he had promised. Miho's face lit up when he saw the tall, cloaked figure enter through the door. Without being asked, Miho prepared the same coffee he had made the night before. He brought it to the corner booth where Teijin had already settled. "You remembered," Teijin said, sounding pleased. "Of course," Miho replied. "Friends remember these things." The word friends hung in the air between them. Teijin looked at Miho for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Something ancient and careful in his expression softened just a little bit more. That night, they talked about the stars. Teijin asked Miho what humans thought about the universe beyond Earth. Miho shared stories about space exploration, about the dreams humanity had of reaching other worlds. He spoke with excitement, his eyes shining as he described the possibility of life among the stars. Teijin listened with a strange expression. Sometimes he would start to say something, then stop himself. Once, he almost told Miho that those other worlds were real, that he had walked on thousands of them. But he caught himself. This was not the time. Not yet. The days turned into a week, then 2. Teijin came every evening without fail. He always sat in the same corner booth. He always ordered the same coffee. And he always stayed until closing time, talking with Miho during the slow hours. Miho learned to read the small changes in Teijin's mood. Some days, the weight on his shoulders seemed heavier. Those were the days when Teijin spoke less and stared into his coffee cup as if searching for answers. Other days, he seemed lighter, almost curious about the world around him. On those lighter days, Miho took the chance to share more human life with a strange friend. One evening, after the shop closed, Miho convinced Teijin to walk with him to a nearby street food stall. "You cannot come to Seoul and not try tekbaki," Miho insisted. They sat on small plastic stools by the street vendor. Teijin had pulled his hood lower, hiding most of his face. But he carefully tried the spicy rice cakes Miho ordered. His eyes widened with surprise. "This is interesting," Teijin said, taking another bite. "The flavors are bold, direct. There is no subtlety, yet it works perfectly." "That is what I love about simple food," Miho said, laughing. "It does not pretend to be something it is not. It is just honest and good." Teijin seemed to think deeply about those words. "Honest and good," he repeated quietly. Such rare qualities. As they ate, people walked past him on the busy street. Nobody paid them any attention. In this crowded city, everyone was focused on their own lives. For Tae-Jin, this anonymity was a treasure beyond price. For the first time in centuries, he was just another person sitting on a street corner, eating food with a friend. Another evening, Miho brought a small speaker to work. During a quiet moment, he played music for Tae-Jin. Not classical or sophisticated music, but simple songs that made people want to smile or tap their feet. Tae-Jin closed his eyes and listened. His clawed hand moved slightly, following the rhythm. When the song ended, he opened his eyes. In my travels, Tae-Jin said carefully, I have heard many forms of music, complex symphonies that take years to compose. But this simple song just now, it made me feel something I had forgotten. Joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy. Music is like that, Miho agreed. The best songs are the ones that touch your heart, not the ones that try to impress your mind. Miho's co-worker, Jaiwon, noticed a strange friendship developing. She was a sharp young woman who had worked at the coffee shop for 3 years. She saw things that others missed. One night, as she was leaving, she pulled Miho aside. That customer of yours, she said quietly. Tae-Jin, there is something different about him. Different how? Miho asked. Jaiwon chose her words carefully. I have seen things. Small things. The way the air seems to shimmer around him sometimes. The way his shadow does not quite match his movements. And his eyes. Miho, no human has eyes like that. Miho looked at her seriously. Does it matter? He is kind. He is alone. He needs a friend. That is all I need to know. Jaiwon smiled softly. You have a good heart, Miho. I just want you to be careful. I think your friend is more than he appears to be. We are all more than we appear to be, Miho replied. As the friendship grew, Tae-Jin began to share more of himself. Not the truth about being an emperor, but small pieces of his thoughts and feelings. He spoke about responsibility, about the burden of making decisions that affected countless lives. He never said how many lives or what kind of decisions, but Miho could hear the weight in every word. Sometimes, Tae-Jin said one night, I wonder if I have forgotten what it means to simply exist, not as a leader or a figure of authority, but just as myself. Does that make sense? It makes perfect sense, Miho said. Everyone needs time to just be themselves, without masks or roles or expectations. Here, with you, I can do that, Tae-Jin said. You ask nothing of me. You want nothing from me. You simply accept my presence. That is what friends do, Miho said simply. One evening, Miho brought a small gift. It was a simple bracelet made of woven cord with a small wooden bead. He had made it himself during his lunch break. I know it is not much, Miho said, holding it out, but I wanted to give you something. Friends should have something to remember each other by. Tae-Jin took the bracelet with trembling hands. He stared at it as if Miho had handed him a crown made of stars. Slowly, carefully, he tied it around his wrist. The simple bracelet looked strange against his scaled skin, but he did not seem to care. Miho, Tae-Jin said, and his voice was thick with emotion. In all my years, across all the places I've been, nobody has given me a gift like this. A gift with no purpose except kindness. Do you like it? Miho asked, suddenly worried it was too simple. I will treasure it, Tae-Jin said. Then, to Miho's surprise, a single tear rolled down from beneath the hood. It caught the light as it fell, shimmering like liquid silver. Miho pretended not to notice the tear. He simply smiled and changed the subject, talking about a funny customer who had come in that morning. That night, when Tae-Jin left the coffee shop, he walked differently. His steps seemed lighter. The weight he carried was still there, but somehow it felt less crushing. He touched the bracelet on his wrist and allowed himself something he had not done in 300 years. He smiled, a real, genuine smile. Back in the coffee shop, Miho cleaned up, humming softly to himself. Jaiwon watched him and shook her head with affection. You have no idea what you have done, do you? She said quietly. What do you mean? Miho asked. Nothing, Jaiwon said, smiling. Just keep being yourself. Outside, the rain had stopped. The stars were visible through breaks in the clouds. And somewhere in the darkness, an emperor remembered what it felt like to be simply a person with a friend. The third week began like any other. Teijin arrived at the coffee shop just as the evening rush was ending. Miho waved at him with his usual warm smile. But something was different tonight. Teijin moved more slowly, and the air around him felt heavy with tension. He sat in his corner booth and waited for Miho to bring his coffee. When Miho arrived, he immediately noticed a change. "Are you all right?" Miho asked, concerned. "I am fine," Teijin said, but his voice lacked its usual strength. "Just tired." Miho did not believe him, but he did not push. He simply sat down across from his friend and waited. Sometimes silence was the best comfort. After a long moment, Teijin spoke. "Miho, have you ever had to choose between what makes you happy and what is right?" "Many times," Miho answered honestly. "I think everyone faces that choice." "And what do you choose?" Teijin asked. "Usually what is right," Miho said. "But I try to find ways to keep a little bit of happiness too. Life is about balance." Teijin touched the bracelet on his wrist, the one Miho had made for him. What if there is no balance? What if choosing what is right means giving up the only happiness you've found in years? Miho looked at his friend carefully. "Teijin, what is going on? Are you in some kind of trouble?" Before Teijin could answer, the door to the coffee shop opened. 3 figures entered. They wore long coats that seemed too formal for the casual atmosphere. Their faces were stern and serious. They looked around the shop until their eyes landed on Teijin. The leader of the 3 walked directly to the corner booth. He was a broad man with sharp features and military bearing. When he spoke, his voice was formal and respectful but firm. "My lord," the man said, bowing slightly, "we have found you at last. You must return immediately." Miho blinked in confusion. "My lord? Who were these people?" Teijin sighed deeply. "Haisung, I told you I needed more time." "Time we do not have," Haisung replied. "The situation has become critical. 3 systems are preparing for war. Only you can stop it. The Empire needs its emperor." The word hit Miho like a physical blow. "Emperor?" He looked at Teijin with wide eyes. "Teijin," Miho said quietly. Teijin finally pushed back his hood. For the first time, Miho saw his friend's face clearly. The scales were deep blue and purple, shimmering with an inner light. His features were noble and ancient, marked by centuries of wisdom and pain. Horns curved back from his head, elegant and sharp. He was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "I am sorry, Miho," Teijin said. "I should have told you the truth. But I was afraid. Afraid that if you knew what I really was, you would treat me differently." "Were you?" Miho asked, though part of him already knew the answer. "I am Emperor Violrose of the Draken Empire," Teijin said. "My people call me the Dragon of 10,000 Worlds. I have ruled for over 500 years, and I came to your planet to hide from that burden, even if just for a little while." The coffee shop was silent. Even the other customers had stopped what they were doing, staring at the scene unfolding in the corner. Haisung stepped closer. "My lord, we must leave now. Admiral Daehoon has already begun spreading rumors about your absence. He claims you have abandoned your duties. Some members of the council are listening to him." "Daehoon," Teijin said with disgust. "That ambitious fool. He has wanted my throne for decades." "Then you must return and show strength," Haisung insisted. "Every day you remain here, his power grows." Miho's head was spinning. His friend, the lonely person he had shared coffee with, was an emperor from another world, an alien, a dragon. Yet when he looked into Teijin's eyes, he saw the same sadness and loneliness he had seen that first rainy night. "You are really leaving?" Miho asked quietly. Teijin looked at him with genuine pain. "I must. There are billions of lives depending on me. 3 star systems are about to go to war over a trade dispute. If I do not intervene, millions will die." "Then you have to go," Miho said, though his voice shook a little. "You have to do what is right." "You are not angry?" Teijin asked, surprised. "I lied to you." "You did not lie," Miho corrected. "You just did not tell me everything. I understand why. Sometimes people need to escape from who they are, even emperors. Taejin stood up slowly. He looked down at Miho with an expression full of emotion. You are an extraordinary human, Miho. In all my travels, across all the worlds I have seen, I have met very few people like you. Will I see you again? Miho asked. I do not know, Taejin admitted. Being an emperor means my life is not my own. Haesung shifted uncomfortably. My lord, we really must hurry. The situation grows worse by the hour. But Taejin was not finished. He reached into his cloak and pulled out a small device. It looked like a smooth stone that glowed with soft blue light. Take this, Taejin said, placing it in Miho's hand. If you ever need me, hold it and speak my true name. I will hear you, no matter where I am in the galaxy. Your true name? Miho asked. Vile Rose, Taejin said softly. My true name is Vile Rose. Before Miho could respond, Jaiwin rushed over from behind the counter. She had been watching everything with sharp eyes. Wait, she said firmly. I have been watching strange people outside the shop all week. Men in dark clothes who do not belong in this neighborhood. Are they with you? Haesung's expression darkened. No, my team would never be so obvious. Then who are they? Jaiwin demanded. At that moment, the front windows of the coffee shop exploded inward. Glass shattered everywhere. Customers screamed and dove for cover. 6 armed figures burst through the entrance, wearing armor that seemed to absorb light. They carried weapons that hummed with dangerous energy. The leader of this new group pointed his weapon at Taejin. Emperor Valrose, you are hereby placed under arrest by order of Admiral Daehoon. You are charged with abandoning your post and neglecting your duties to the Empire. Haesung and his 2 companions immediately moved to protect Taejin, drawing their own weapons. The tension in the room became suffocating. Stand down, Taejin commanded, his voice suddenly filled with imperial authority. I will not have blood spilled in this place. Then come peacefully, the enemy's soldier said. Miho stepped forward, placing himself between the soldiers and Taejin. His heart was pounding, but his voice was steady. No, Miho said simply. Everyone stared at the young human who had just challenged armed alien soldiers. The lead soldier looked at Miho with contempt. Human, move aside. This does not concern you. He is my friend, Miho said, not moving. That makes it my concern. Taejin put a hand on Miho's shoulder. Miho, do not do this. These weapons can kill you instantly. I know, Miho said, but I also know that friends stand together. You taught me that sometimes we have to choose what is right over what is safe. The lead soldier raised his weapon, pointing it directly at Miho. Last warning, human. And then Taejin changed. His form expanded, scales spreading across his entire body. His true dragon nature emerged in a flash of blue and purple light. He was magnificent and terrifying, his presence filling the entire coffee shop with ancient power. You will not touch him, Taejin roared, his voice shaking the walls. The coffee shop fell completely silent. Taejin stood in his true form, towering over everyone. His scales shimmered with inner light, each one like a piece of the night sky. His wings, though partially folded, still brushed against the ceiling. His eyes blazed with power that made the air itself tremble. The soldiers who had burst in stepped back, their weapons lowering slightly. Even they, trained warriors who served Admiral Daehoon, felt fear in the presence of a true dragon emperor. Miho stood frozen, staring up at his friend. This was what Taejin truly was. Not the tired, lonely figure in a cloak, but an ancient being of incredible power. Yet when those blazing eyes looked down at him, Miho saw the same person who had shared coffee with him every night. The same person who had cried when given a simple handmade bracelet. Lower your weapons, Taejin commanded, his voice rumbling like thunder. All of you, now! Haesung and his guards immediately obeyed. The soldiers working for Daehoon hesitated, but the sheer presence of the Dragon Emperor made resistance feel impossible. One by one, they lowered their weapons. The lead soldier tried to maintain his authority. Emperor Valrose, Admiral Daehoon has the support of the Council. They have declared you unfit to rule. You must return for a formal hearing. Daehoon has no authority to declare anything, Taejin growled. And the council answers to me, not the other way around. They say you have grown weak, the soldier continued, his voice shaking slightly. They say you have abandoned your people for primitive pleasures, that you have lost sight of what the Empire needs. What the Empire needs, Taejin said slowly, is not for soldiers to decide. Miho finally found his voice. Taejin, maybe you should go back. Not because these people demand it, but because you said people are in danger. You said 3 systems might go to war. Taejin looked down at Miho, his fierce expression softening. You still call me Taejin, even after seeing this? That is your name, is it not? Miho said, the name you chose when you came here. It is still who you are. Before anyone could respond, a holographic image appeared in the center of the coffee shop. It showed a tall alien figure in military uniform, decorated with medals and symbols of rank. His face was sharp and cruel, with scales of dark red. This was Admiral Daehoon. Vial rose. Daehoon's image said with mock respect, how fitting that we find you hiding in a primitive coffee shop on a backwater planet. This is what the great emperor of 10,000 worlds has become? A coward drinking cheap coffee with simple creatures? Taejin's growl shook the windows. Daehoon, you go too far. I go as far as necessary, Daehoon replied. The council grows tired of your weakness. For 500 years, you have ruled with what you call wisdom. But wisdom without strength is just another word for fear. The Empire needs a strong leader, not someone who runs away to play pretend with humans. Be careful how you speak, Haesung warned, stepping forward. You address your emperor. For how much longer? Daehoon asked. I have the support of 40% of the council. And after they see the proof of where their emperor has been hiding, more will join my cause. You will be removed, Vial rose. The only question is whether you will go peacefully or in chains. Miho felt anger rising in his chest. He had never been a violent person, but hearing someone speak to his friend with such disrespect made his blood boil. You are wrong about him, Miho said loudly, stepping forward. Daehoon's holographic image turned to look at Miho. And what is this? A human dares to speak? How amusing. I am not afraid of you, Miho said, though his heart was racing. I know Taejin better than you do. He is not weak. Taking time to remember what it means to be a person, to care about others, to feel simple joy, that is not weakness. That is strength. You understand nothing, primitive, Daehoon sneered. An emperor cannot afford such luxuries. An emperor must be above such things. No, Miho said firmly. An emperor must understand the people he rules. How can you lead billions of lives if you forget what it means to live? Taejin came here not because he is weak, but because he is wise enough to know when he needs to remember his purpose. Daehoon laughed, a harsh and mocking sound. Listen to this human. Lecture me about leadership. Vial rose. Is this what you've been learning here? Philosophy from coffee shop workers. Taejin moved forward, placing himself beside Miho. He transformed back into his humanoid form, though power still radiated from him. Yes, Taejin said clearly. I have learned more from this human in 2 weeks than I learned from the council in 2 decades. Miho reminded me why I became emperor in the first place. Not for power or glory, but to serve, to protect, to care for those under my rule. Weakness, Daehoon spat. Strength, Taejin corrected. True strength comes from knowing when to be gentle and when to be fierce. You know only fierceness. Daehoon, that is why you will never be fit to rule. We shall see, Daehoon said. I am sending more ships to Earth. You will return to the capital, and the council will decide your fate. If you resist, this entire planet will be declared in violation of galactic law. The hologram disappeared. The soldiers in the coffee shop looked uncertain now, caught between their orders and their natural fear of the Dragon Emperor. Haesung moved closer to Taejin. My lord, we must leave now. We need to reach the capital before Daehoon can spread more lies. The loyal members of the council need to see you are still strong. He is right, Miho said quietly. You have to go. Taejin looked at Miho, for a long moment. Then he placed both hands on the young human's shoulders. "Come with me." "What?" Miho said, surprised. "Come with me to the capital," Teijin said. "Let the council hear what you told Daehoon. Let them hear a voice untainted by politics and power games. Let them remember what it means to lead with compassion." "I am just a coffee shop worker," Miho protested. "Nobody will listen to me." "You made an emperor remember how to smile," Teijin said. "You reminded me what it means to be more than my title. If you can do that for me, perhaps you can do it for others." Jaiwin stepped forward. "He should go," she said. "Miho, you always talk about wanting to see the universe, to meet new people and hear their stories. This is your chance." "But the coffee shop," Miho started. "I will handle it," Jaiwin said with a smile. "Go. Your friend needs you." Miho looked around at the destroyed coffee shop, at the alien soldiers standing awkwardly with their weapons, at Haisung and his guards waiting patiently. Then he looked at Teijin, at the hope in his ancient eyes. "Okay," Miho said. "I will go with you." Teijin's expression transformed with relief and joy. "Thank you, my friend." Haisung activated a device on his wrist. "Prepare for transport. All units, return to the ship. We leave immediately." The world around him began to shimmer. Miho felt a strange, tingling sensation spreading through his body. He grabbed Teijin's arm instinctively. "It is all right," Teijin assured him. "This is just transport technology. It will feel strange, but it is safe." The last thing Miho saw before the coffee shop disappeared was Jaiwin, waving at him with a proud smile on her face. Then everything dissolved into light, and his journey to the stars began. Miho opened his eyes and immediately felt dizzy. He was standing on a platform inside a massive ship. The walls curved upward into a ceiling, so high it looked like a sky. Everything glowed with soft blue light. Through enormous windows, he could see her shrinking below them. "Easy," Teijin said, steadying him. "Transport can be disorienting the first time." "We are in space," Miho whispered, staring out the window. "We are actually in space." "Yes," Teijin said with a small smile. "Welcome to my flagship, the Eternal Sky." Haisung approached them quickly. "My lord, Admiral Daehoon has already contacted the council. He is demanding an emergency session. We have 3 hours before we reach the capital." 3 hours, Teijin repeated. He looked at Miho. "Are you sure you want to do this? Once we arrive, there will be no turning back. The council chamber can be intimidating even for experienced diplomats." "I am sure," Miho said, though his hands were shaking. "You stood up for me. Now I stand up for you." The journey to the capital world of Dracoria took exactly 3 hours. Miho spent that time looking out the windows, watching as they jumped through what Teijin called hyperspace. Stars streaked past like rivers of light. Entire nebulas passed by in moments. It was more beautiful than anything Miho had ever imagined. Teijin sat beside him, sometimes explaining what they were seeing, sometimes just sitting in comfortable silence. The bracelet Miho had made still hung on his wrist, looking out of place against his imperial robes that Haisung had insisted he wear. When they finally arrived at Dracoria, Miho gasped. The planet was covered in massive cities that glowed like jewels. Towers reached up into the clouds. Ships of every size moved through the air like schools of fish. This was the heart of an empire that ruled 10,000 worlds. The council chamber was even more impressive. It was a circular room with walls made of something that looked like crystal. Hundreds of seats rose in tiers around a central platform. Aliens of every species Miho could imagine filled those seats. Some had scales like Teijin. Others had fur or feathers or skin that glowed. Some looked almost human. Others were completely strange. All of them turned to stare when Teijin entered with Miho walking beside him. Admiral Daehoon stood on the central platform. He smiled coldly when he saw them. "Emperor Vael rose. How kind of you to finally join us. And you brought your human pet. How touching." "Address him with respect," Teijin growled, "or do not address him at all." An elderly dragon with silver scales spoke from the highest seat. This was Counselor Yerem, the oldest member of the council. "Let's begin. Admiral Daehoon has accused you of abandoning your duties. He claims you spent weeks on a primitive world, while 3 systems prepare for war. How do you answer these charges? Teijin walked to the center platform, his head held high. I do not deny that I went to Earth. I do not deny that I stayed there for several weeks. But I did not abandon my duties. I went to remember why those duties matter. Explain yourself, another counselor demanded. For 500 years, I have ruled this empire, Teijin said, his voice echoing through the chamber. For 500 years, I have made decisions that affected billions of lives. I have prevented wars, negotiated treaties, and tried to bring peace and prosperity to all our worlds. But somewhere along the way, I forgot what it felt like to simply be alive. I forgot the taste of simple food, the sound of honest laughter, the feeling of friendship given freely, not because of my title, but because of who I am. This is weakness, Dae-hoon interrupted. An emperor cannot afford such feelings. No, Mio said loudly, surprising everyone including himself. That is exactly wrong. The entire council turned to look at the small human standing beside their emperor. Yerim leaned forward with interest. The human wishes to speak? This is unusual, but I will allow it. Speak, human. Mio's heart pounded, but he thought of his grandmother. She had always told him to speak truth, even when afraid. He stepped forward onto the platform. My name is Miho, he said. I am a coffee shop worker from Earth. I am nobody important. But I know Teijin, or as you call him, Emperor Vielrose. I have spent time with him. I have talked with him. And I have seen something that I think you have all forgotten. And what is that? Dae-hoon asked mockingly. He cares, Miho said simply. Really, truly cares. Not just about laws or treaties or politics. He cares about people, individual people, their hopes, their fears, their simple happiness. When he came to my coffee shop, he was not running away. He was trying to remember why he does this job in the first place. Pretty words, Dae-hoon said, but words do not stop wars. You are wrong, Miho replied. Everything starts with words, with understanding, with caring enough to see others as people, not just numbers or resources. Teijin did not become a great emperor by being the strongest or the fiercest. He became great because he understood that true leadership means serving others, not ruling over them. Counselor Yerim spoke again. Young human, you say the emperor cares about individual people. Can you give us an example? Yes, Miho said. On the first night we met, I was just a stranger. He had no reason to talk to me. But when I brought him coffee, he looked at me like I had given him something precious. Not because the coffee was special, but because someone had shown him simple kindness. He told me later that he had forgotten what that felt like. An emperor who can still appreciate simple kindness, who can still feel grateful for a small gesture, that is someone who will never forget what it means to serve his people. Several counselors nodded thoughtfully. Others whispered to each other. Dae-hoon's expression grew darker. This proves nothing, Dae-hoon insisted. While our emperor made friends with primitives, 3 systems moved closer to war. That is fact. And why are those systems going to war? Teijin asked suddenly. Tell the council, Dae-hoon, what is a dispute about? Dae-hoon hesitated. A trade disagreement about mineral rights. Mineral rights, Teijin repeated. Not territory, not resources necessary for survival. Mineral rights that would make certain corporations richer. And who owns stock in those corporations, Dae-hoon? The admiral's face darkened with anger. That is irrelevant. Is it? Teijin pressed. You push for aggressive negotiation tactics. You encourage both sides to stand firm. You wanted this conflict because you and your allies profit from it. And when I returned to stop it, you try to have me arrested. Haisung stepped forward. My lord, we have evidence. Communications between Admiral Dae-hoon and leaders on both sides of the conflict. He was manipulating them, making each side think the other was being unreasonable. The council chamber erupted in angry voices. Counselors shouted at each other and at Dae-hoon. The admiral tried to defend himself, but his words were drowned out. Yerim stood up, and immediately the chamber fell silent. Enough. Admiral Dae-hoon, you are hereby removed from your position and placed under investigation. Guards, take him away. As soldiers led Daehoon from the chamber, he glared at Miho with pure hatred. But Miho did not look away. He had spoken his truth, and that was enough. Yerem turned to Taejin. Emperor Valrose, the council apologizes. We should have investigated these matters more carefully before listening to Daehoon's accusations. Apology accepted, Taejin said. Now let us stop this pointless war. The next few hours passed in a blur. Taejin contacted the leaders of the three systems. With Daehoon's manipulation exposed, they quickly agreed to peaceful negotiations. The war that had seemed inevitable was stopped before it could begin. 6 months passed. Earth became a protected world, and peaceful contact was established. Humans learned they were not alone in the universe. The change was gradual and carefully managed, but it was happening. Miho had returned to Earth after a month. He had seen wonders beyond imagination, met countless alien species, and even addressed the Imperial Council 2 more times. But eventually he wanted to go home. The coffee shop had been repaired. Jaiwan had managed everything perfectly. Life returned to normal as it could be when you knew the truth about the universe. One evening, 6 months after everything had changed, it started to rain. Miho was closing up the shop when the door opened. A figure in a tattered cloak walked in and sat in the corner booth. Miho smiled. Without a word, he made a simple coffee and brought it over. He sat down across from his friend. "Hello, Taejin," Miho said. "Hello, Miho." Taejin replied, pushing back his hood. "I hope I am not late." "You are right on time," Miho said. They talked for hours, just like old times. Taejin shared stories about implementing new policies across the empire. Policies focused on compassion and understanding. He had created councils where ordinary citizens could voice their concerns directly. He called them compassion councils, inspired by his time on Earth. "The empire is changing," Taejin said. "Slowly but truly changing. And it started because someone bought a lonely stranger a cup of coffee." As the night grew late and the rain continued to fall, Taejin asked the question Miho had been expecting. "Would you like to see the universe?" Taejin asked, not as a diplomat or an ambassador, just as my friend, exploring together. Miho thought about his quiet life, his coffee shop, his routine. Then he thought about the stars and the infinite possibilities waiting out there. "Yes," Miho said, smiling. "I would like that very much." They left Earth the next morning. The coffee shop went to Jaiwan, who promised to keep it running. As Miho looked back at his home planet from the ship's window, he held a cup of coffee in his hands. "Who knew," he said softly, "that buying a stranger coffee could change a galaxy?" Taejin stood beside him, the simple bracelet still on his wrist. "Small acts of kindness create ripples," he quoted. "Your grandmother was very wise." She was, Miho agreed. She really was. And together, the Emperor and the coffee shop workers sailed off into the stars, ready for whatever adventures waited among the 10,000 worlds.